Jordan Peterson was recently interviewed by a woke leftist, and the two clashed in a heated exchange over trans issues. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and we're going to analyze the profound points made by Peterson and see precisely how the woke left is so utterly morally bankrupt.
But I do have a question about that specific tweet that did get you in trouble because, you said something to the effect of...
well, I don't know if it got me in trouble. I don't think I'm in trouble. Twitter banned me, but I don't consider that trouble.
That's fair enough. Fair point. But you said something to the effect of, remember when pride was a sin and the criminal physicians...
And Ellen Page just had her breasts cut off by a criminal physician.
Criminal physician, exactly. So my question is the physician really criminal? If you agree that adults can decide to transition, then why would the physician be criminal? Don't adults have that right if they want to transition?
Not everything legal isn't criminal. And do they have that right? See, I would have left Ellen Page alone if she hadn't been parading her new abs in a fashion magazine. How many kids do you think she can convince to convert? One?
Yeah.
1,000? No, not, yeah.
No,
really?
I want to respond to that.
We'll let him respond in a moment. That was Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk. But what Jordan Peterson just said there was so key in all of this. He said, not everything legal isn't criminal. Not everything legal isn't criminal. There's a very important distinction between law and justice. And that's so profound here because he revealed the real clash that's happening here with this trans issue. It's a clash between rights and responsibilities, or better, it's a clash between what ethical theorists have termed negative freedom versus positive freedom. The great Oxford philosopher Isaiah Berlin argued that freedom has two hierarchical parts. The lower part is the negative side of freedom, namely freedom from, right? That's the side of freedom that teenagers, for example, are so famous for in their need to be free from the supervision of parents and schools, right? It's the triggered form of freedom, the not my president form of freedom, okay? But Berlin noted that this negative side of freedom is always incomplete without the higher form of freedom that he called positive freedom. It's a freedom for. It's the notion that we're free to do what we ought to do. We're free to do what's right and good. This is what Lord Acton taught when he said freedom is not the power of doing what we like, but the right of being able to do what we ought. We don't just do what's right, we hunger and thirst for righteousness. That's true freedom. It's not a question of what Ellen Page has the right to do. It's a question of what Ellen Page ought to do. That's the question that this woke leftist can't appear to even fathom.
I think that with the trans community, it's very similar to the gay community, where back when that first became a big issue, people thought, oh, if we talk about it, if it's in magazines or whatever, we're promoting kids to go down that path. But really what happened is people are who they are. And if they're gay, they just decided to be like, yeah, I'm gay. And they were just more open and honest with themselves. So I don't think you're promoting people to do that.
No, that's
you're just
not
saying,
what happened.
if you are that, it's okay.
Wrong.
Okay. Well,
you're utterly wrong.
I'm listening.
There's nothing about that that's right.
So,
and it isn't the fact that we've freed up people who are in doubt about their identity to be who they are. That may have happened in a tiny minority of cases. It's absolutely and definitely the case that we've doomed thousands of kids to brutal, mutilating surgery and premature sterility. And we've done that on the altar of our hypothetical moral virtue and compassion.
Now, again, this is key, what Peterson just said there. There's a very important distinction between, in this case, the issue of transgenderism and the issue of same-sex marriage. They are demonstrably different. Pundits have recognized that a crucial difference between the success of the gay rights movement and the frustration of the transgender movement is that while it's widely recognized that same-sex marriage involves a consensual relationship wherein adults are free to enter into or leave, the trans movement often entails surgical alterations on children that cannot be undone. You can always end the marriage, but you can't undo surgically performed body modifications. Unlike two adults entering into a consensual relationship, the sex reassignment surgery that's being imposed often on children who are not prepared to make such life-altering decisions involves a permanently body-altering act. This permanence, impermanence, this adult-child distinction represents a fundamental difference between same-sex marriage and transgenderism. Hey gang, as you probably know, a number of financial experts are predicting that things are about to blow. The economy is sputtering out of control, and you need to prepare now for the economic catastrophe that may indeed be right around the corner. And all that means that there's never been a better time to protect your assets with the timeless value of gold and silver. And that's where our good friends over at Goldco come in. Click on the link below and learn the 3 simple steps you can take right now to protect your savings the way patriots throughout the centuries have always protected their assets, and that's with gold and silver. In fact, Goldco are patriots just like us. They want you to succeed so much that you're offering up to $10,000 in free silver while supply lasts. So don't wait. Click on that link below or visit my special website, turleytalkslikesgold.com.
I just have to say, Jordan, I think it's a little bit of a moral panic. I just don't see some sort of, frenzy of
what
people
would you
wanting
consider
to become trans.
First of all, that's a hell of a way to put it.
Why
don't you take a look at the increase in surgical interventions and see what you think? I mean, how many do you think is too many?
Again,
if we're talking about
I'll
suffering,
answer your question. The argument is it used to be very repressed because that's very outside of the tradition and the norm and the standard. And that now when you sort of let the boot off the neck a little bit.
Suppressed? What used to be suppressed?
The entire LGBTQ community. I mean, it was very recently we even got gay marriage in the United States.
First of all, they're not a community.
Well, you understand the point I'm making.
No, actually, neither I understand it nor you. And that's why we're delving into it. First of all, they're not a community. That's just a catchphrase. It's a buzzword. And I'll tell you something else, that almost all the kids who are undergoing surgical intervention, the clinical literature is absolutely clear on this. 80% of kids with gender dysphoria identify as homosexual when they mature. 80%. And that means the vast majority of people who are being converted surgically are gay. Now, how is that an advantage to the gay community precisely?
Those are 2 great points. 2 excellent points. This whole notion of the LGBT community is absurd. Sociologists recognize that a community is a highly coherent social formation with distinctive commonality in thought and practice. There's no such thing like that among the highly diversified aggregate designated as trans. And the issue of gender dysphoria is absolutely correct. As I understand it, children with gender identity issues do tend to grow up attracted to the same sex. And if that's the case, trans surgeries would be interrupting this process. Just like we're seeing with women's sports. Once again, we're seeing how trans issues ends up adversely affecting others. Again, unlike the issues surrounding gay marriage, where no one is affected beyond the 2 consenting adults, trans issues adversely affect others, whether it's female sports or same-sex attraction.
But aren't there some people that are obviously trans who were born in one body, they feel like they're in the other body, and when they're an adult, they can make the decision? And then even from just a freedom and liberty perspective, shouldn't they have that right? Even if they do it and then they regret it, shouldn't they have the right to try it?
It's a good question. I mean, it's a tricky one, right? Because there's all sorts of surgical enhancement procedures that are it's not obviously appropriate to make them illegal. And I don't know exactly where the cutoff line is, so to speak. And that's partly why we're having a public discussion about it. But this entire argument, in many ways, is stated so idiotically that it almost defies description. I mean, what do you mean feel like you're in the wrong body? What kind of measurement is that? Now, hang on a sec. There are rules for these sorts of diagnostic decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The rule is that you have to make a valid and reliable diagnosis. That's if you're diagnosing depression or anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder or cancer or anything like that. There are standards that you have to abide by in order to make a diagnosis, in order to fulfill the obligations of your professional college. If someone comes to you and says, I feel like I have lung cancer, that is not sufficient grounds upon which to formulate a diagnosis, much less proceed to surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, what do you mean by feel? What is that? Is that an emotion? Is it a motivation? Is it a philosophical conclusion? What is it?
Let me explain. Let me explain to you what I mean. So I've been doing my show for about a decade, and about 2 or 3 years into doing my show, there were, some stories here and there that I covered about the trans issue. Somebody who is trans reached out to me and explained to me in a very straightforward way, yeah, look, I was born biologically female. I feel like I'm biologically male. My reality
what does that
never
mean?
lined up. Well,
Feel.
I'm just explaining what they said, and then you can respond however you'd like to respond. And they told me as soon as I got the surgery, changed the way I dressed, changed the way I appeared, I felt phenomenally better. And so that's why, at least for me, this was the answer. Now, I think it would be incredibly arrogant for me to say back to that person, no, you shouldn't do that, or I know better than you do for yourself. Now, that's not to say that every time somebody does this, it works out well, of course, because everybody's an individual. But in some instances, that's the answer. So, me as a simple outsider, I just look at it and say, hey, whatever floats your boat, and if it works, it works.
Look, most of the time, my attitude is you can go to hell in handbasket any way you choose if you're an adult. Now, this problem is complicated and compounded by the fact of the necessity of medical involvement and the ethics on the medical front. So when you asked me about how that should be regulated, my answer was, I'm not exactly sure about that.
Yeah,
although it isn't obvious to me it's obvious to me that the trans surgery enterprise has gone way too far, thousands of people too far. And I'm certain that it's harmed exponentially more people than it's helped.
The key here that this leftist does not seem to even consider is that the Western medical tradition is rooted in the Hippocratic Oath, which is the refusal to do harm. And Peterson is pointing out that what makes the trans issue so unique is that it has the potential of causing the medical industry to cross the line between health and harm, between literally medicine and mutilation. The trans issue has the potential of using medical technology to harm rather than heal. And the blurring of this line has potentially disastrous consequences for society, where medicine could end up being used legally to intentionally harm and destroy. So this goes way beyond harming children. This is an issue that has the potential to harm the whole of society. So needless to say, this was a fascinating, though heated, debate. And I'm so grateful for Jordan Peterson, who so faithfully contributes clarity and compassion in the midst of his profoundly insightful arguments. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll definitely want to check out my latest video on Elon Musk slaughtering a smug CNBC reporter on George Soros and conspiracy theories. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless. Hey gang, if you want to connect with more courageous patriots and start taking action and organizing, be sure to join my Telegram group. I post the latest breaking news I find interesting and chat with my favorite patriots around the country and even the world. Click the link in the description below and join the conversation today.